Hello and welcome back to What's on Your Mind podcast. Today we are bringing you along for a book club. Um, More specifically, what do your therapists read and what do they encourage their clients to read? So, yeah, Tori, you brought up a good little question before we hit record, if you want to start there.
Yeah, well, now I forget what I said, but I think it was something along the lines of we as therapists get asked all the time, like,
Mhm.
is there any like thing I can read on this? Or like, is there anything I can do on my own, like to
Yeah.
complement our time together? And um sometimes I have a certainly something in mind. I think
Yeah.
it's awesome. And sometimes I scratch my head a little bit and end up doing a bit of Googling myself or reaching out to our
Yeah.
team to ask if anyone has any recommendations. So I forget who it was on our team. It might have been Julie, or maybe it was you, Cassandra, that someone said like we should have a book club.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
I did.
and and then we've been posting it on our newsletter. So we feature a book once a month on there, and we do like just a brief blurb on it. I think it's
Yeah.
on our Instagram too. But I think this is just an opportunity for the viewers to kind of see what we think of recommending books and
Yeah.
what books we like to recommend and maybe why.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think that's what I was talking about before we hit
Yeah.
record. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, no, you're good. Yeah. Um, so I'm just looking at my pile of books over on the side. I have a problem with book collecting. So, uh, my to be read list is extensive. Um, but I'm just trying to think like the ones that I picked to talk about today, were just books that I commonly will recommend to clients,
Yeah, that's
or I
great.
just think are good for therapists and other people just to read in general. But my main two, hold
Share
on,
your favorite. Like, which one's your favorite?
my very favorite. Well, I can't narrow that down. That's like asking me to pick a child. Uh, um, no, I would say when I was starting out as a therapist, um, the Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents was a really
Mm,
big one that I recommended a lot. Pretty much anything by Lindsay Gibson. She has different versions of it where it's like coping skills for adult children of emotionally immature parents or dealing with emotionally immature people. And I think that that is a topic that I really like. And I find that it's one that pops up a lot, especially when you're talking about family dynamics and you're talking
oh,
about, even with our couples, right? If one
totally.
partner is a little more emotionally immature, it's harder to access emotions. It's harder to plug in with your partner.
Yeah, well, you got to identify them before you share them, right? And if
Right,
they're not that step, we got to backtrack, right? And
right.
what can they do on their own um, to understand themselves better and then be there for the relationship, right?
Yeah, yep. And the other one is always a risky one because anytime it's called Toxic Parents.
Oh, that word,
I
toxic.
know, by Susan
It's thrown
Forward.
around so much.
I love that one. It's a little heavier than the Emotionally Immature Parents book. Um,
Heavier in
it's
what way? What do you mean?
it's heavier in that each section deals with a different type of toxic parent. So,
Oh,
individuals who've had parents that were alcoholics, or if there was
mm.
sexual abuse or physical
Oh,
abuse. So I, I always explain it like it's on a spectrum, right? On the low end of the spectrum, you have emotional immaturity, and on the high end of the spectrum, you have a little more I don't want to say narcissistic, but narcissistic like traits,
tendencies. Yeah.
tendencies maybe, yeah, that are a little more toxic. Um, and so when I have a client who is trying to figure out their family or understand their childhood, I direct them to those two books and say, you might find one book over the other is more relevant to your experience, but they're
Hmm.
both good books to kind of understand family dynamics and understand when things don't go well. Um, but yeah, the toxic parent one, I only laugh because I once recommended it to a client, and they uh they were like, "Oh no, I share like an Amazon account with my parents, and if
And
I
they're gonna
order
see
this,
this in there.
yeah, if I order this, they're gonna have questions." Um, so yeah, I always
I
tell
kind of like how you
people,
said it was broken down though. Like if you're looking at something more specific, it can really speak to that. And I think a
mhm,
really important piece of picking a book, or any kind of material,
yeah,
is just that it resonates with you,
yeah,
right? And
yep,
so um, perhaps you have found these books to resonate with your clients.
definitely. Yeah, yep. I've never had anyone say that they didn't find it helpful. I mean, I've had
Mhm,
clients who are like, oh, it didn't resonate with me, this one, but it makes me think of people in my life, right? Or
mhm.
stuff like that. So I find it as a really good sort of foundational to
Yeah.
understanding family dynamics, or just um dysfunctional people in your life.
hmm Does it give you any kind of like tips or like insights into like how to cope better with these people
I
who
would
are
say the Toxic Parent book does give some more like therapeutic techniques, like, writing a letter and then, like,
okay,
ripping it up, or things like that.
sure.
The Emotionally Immature Parents book does a lot. I feel like that one is better at one showing how to address a parent that is emotionally immature, and what you have to kind of say and do differently um, to kind of help with that. Because I found that it's almost like you're being asked to kind of gently parent your parents in a way, like
Mm,
you're not you're wanting to take a step back from being reactive to your parents when they're emotionally immature, and be more uh intentional with how you talk with them. So
right.
I think, for example, in the Emotionally Mature book, they give the example of some parents will call in like this frenzy, panicked, it's an emergency. And because that's been such a dynamic for so long, the adult child will feel like they have to jump up and automatically take care of the issue.
Right.
But instead, in the book, it sort of encourages the adult child to go, okay, pause. Is this an emergency? Is this something that I'm responsible for? Is this
hmm
something that I'm allowed to go, okay, I need time to think about this, that kind of thing. And I've just found that clients find that very helpful, to give them the language that they need in order to not be unkind to their parents, but just,
It
allow
almost
them
sounds like setting boundaries, like really
it
think
is.
like kind of instead
Mhm.
of just doing the default, like what
Mhm.
you've always done is really thinking about, does this make sense to do?
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, those are my two like
Cool.
favorite ones. More recently, as I've gotten more acquainted with sex therapy, it would be Come As You Are by Emily Nagrassi. And then she also has written Come Together, which is more geared towards couples, which is what I recommend when I'm doing couples therapy.
Right?
But yeah, Come As You Are. uh, I think that should be a
Is
free
it
book.
for like all sexes and genders?
I It is more geared towards women.
Okay.
Um, but honestly, I feel like it should just be given to people that are graduating high school, because I feel like it is that important to like understand your own body as a woman, for young men to understand how women's bodies work,
Mm,
understand how, the responsive desire works, how all of that, even if you're gay, straight, bisexual, whatever, I think it's just a good thing to understand, so we can kind of dispel some of these myths that end up
cool.
coming about with sex.
Nice. No, that's a good one. That is something that comes up a lot in couples therapy,
Mhm.
intimacy and sex, and how to talk about that with your partner. So those,
Yeah.
I'm sure, are really good recommendations.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want me to go through the rest of it, or do you want
I
to
don't know.
give
Do
the
you want
world?
me to talk? I don't care. Doesn't matter to
I
me.
can go through I can go through my list and then we can go through yours. I feel bad. I had a longer list, but
Don't feel bad. Keep going.
okay. Um, when I'm talking about like shame, because I've found that with some clients, shame is a big topic, right? Like they feel
Hmm.
shame, it's a core belief, all these sorts of things. So I usually direct them to like John Bradshaw, which is Healing the Shame That Binds
Feeling the
You.
shame.
And he's also written The Family, um, which is about creating better self-esteem. Um, I will say, as much as I love them, I will say that he does lean a little bit on like AA principles.
Okay.
So
Like, are they more rooted in faith, like in a religion?
yeah, yeah, a little bit. And that's fine. I do usually like to preface that with clients that
Oh, that's
that might
good.
be an element of it. And if, ignore it if it's not something something that's prevalent to you, or don't read it if if you don't feel like it's hitting the boxes for you.
Right.
Um, but yeah, that's I whenever I'm talking about something like shame, or especially shame within family, that's kind of like the next tier up from like the toxic parents and the emotionally
Mm.
immature, is like those next ones. More recently I've been recommending it's by Elaine, I believe, sorry. Elaine Aron, The Highly
Sensitive
Sensitive
person.
Person.
That's
Um,
something that's coming out more and more is
mhm.
just like being a highly sensitive person and knowing what that is and what that means
Yeah.
for your life, like for your relationships.
Yeah. Yep. So that one's been I've been recommending that a lot. A lot of people have found um that really helpful, just to feel heard, especially as they've grown up being told, "Oh, you're so sensitive," or "Oh, you feel so much."
Right. Or they cry so easily. Like I get
Yeah.
so many clients who are like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional." It's like, why are you apologizing?
Yeah. Yeah, I know exactly. And then I also have two books that kind of go hand in hand together. One is more geared towards internal family systems. So it's that modality deals with um, they view each part of ourselves as a separate part. So, like, if you're
Mhm.
anxious, you have an anxious part. If you're
Right.
angry, you have an angry part. If you were abused, you have an abused part. And so, separating that and creating some distance from that allows you to reduce the emotions and the intensity of emotions, and heal some of that. So, if
Mm.
a client is more interested in that, I will recommend Self Therapy um, by Jay Ellerly. That's really good with that. And then also, it's called Shadow Work. Um, so that one is more geared towards like, I think like Carl Jung and stuff like that.
Okay.
Um, it's all about like self compassion, your inner child, that sort of thing. Um,
Sure.
and I have found that there's a certain type of client who they've gone to therapy a lot. They understand things like CBT. They understand their core beliefs. They get that, right? They're very emotionally intelligent, but they hit this wall of, I don't know, like there's still something deeper that I want to access, but I'm struggling
Mhm.
to access that deeper. And everywhere I go is just CBT kind of stuff. And that's not what I need. And so at that point, I usually go with internal family systems or shadow work.
Cool. I like the different approaches, right? Because it's not a one size fits all. We
Yeah,
we
no.
all see the world differently, and so
Yeah.
how we approach things.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, very cool.
All right. And then my last two,
I
I'm
was gonna say
sorry.
you have another
I
one, don't
do.
you?
I
No,
have
go
two
for it.
more, and then that's it.
Okay.
You should see my office right now. It's like torn apart because I was looking through all my books. This one is more for parents. It's called The Whole Brain Child. And it's just I've I think it's really great because it's helps the parent understand um like your child's development and how their behavior is probably more age appropriate than we like to think. Um, and so how do you deal with your child at 3 or 4 or 5 or
Right.
whatever, in a way that is age appropriate for them? Ow, I just ripped my headphones out. Um,
To
uh,
reach their like developmental
mhm.
growth, right? Like you
Yeah,
can't
and
talk to a, I don't know, a 4-year-old like they're an 8-year-old.
yeah, yep. And exactly. And I think it also allows the parent to take some of that frustration out of parenting, because it's why, instead of why aren't you doing this, it's, oh, well, they're 5. That's why they're not doing that.
Right. There's nothing wrong with the kid and there's
Yeah,
nothing wrong with you. It's
right.
just where we're at.
Yeah, exactly. They're 5. They need it repeated 4 billion times and they're still not going to maybe quite get it. And that's okay. But I found that that kind of lowers the anxiety. And once you lower that anxiety, the kid can feel that. And
Oh, for
then
sure.
their behavior changes. But last but not least is Fight Right, which I have
Fight
not actually
right.
read yet. It's on my to be read list, but I did get it. And it is, of course, by our lovely Gottmans. And I still recommend it to my couples, even though I have not yet read it. Sorry, but
Highly
um,
recommended.
yes, okay. So that's my pile of recommendations.
No, it's good.
Um,
I think that's awesome.
yeah, all right.
Very varied, all over the place.
I try. I try.
No, that's good.
Okay.
Wonderful. All right. Am I diving in now?
Yeah, let's hear yours.
Okay. Well, stereotypical me, Gottman all
Of
around.
course.
I find a lot of my new couples, when I see them, they're like, one of the first things I say to people is like, have you heard of the Gottmans, right? Because I'm introducing
Mhm.
myself, I'm talking about my level of expertise and my
Yeah.
training, and just like trying to assess if it's a good fit. And I'll bring up that I'm highly Gottman trained, and they'll say, "Oh yeah, we have that book," and they kind of look at each other like, "Oh yeah, like what book is that?" And it's the 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work. A lot
Yeah.
of people have this on their bookshelf, but have like not cracked the spine or have like gotten a chapter or two in
Hmm.
and then it collects dust. But it's one of, I'd say, like their most common. It's one of the earlier, actually, you shouldn't even say that, earlier books. They had a lot more before this one. But I think it's the most popular.
Yeah,
They
I
did
agree.
revise it and update it with new things, so I think that's pretty neat.
Yeah.
But I think it's just such a foundational piece. What it does is it breaks up the relationship into 7 components, and
Mhm.
it really does a great. I think it's like a chapter, a principle. Actually, I'm just looking at this. Of course, I've highlighted in here. Like I'm just
Well,
like it's been a while
yeah.
since I've looked through this, and I'm like, oh yeah. Okay, I even wrote some things. All right, good job, Tori. Um, so not exactly a chapter, a principle, but pretty much. And I love that it's such an easy read. I'm not an avid reader myself. I think university ruined me in that
Oh, yeah.
way. Read so much, and I really didn't read for pleasure before that either, to be
No? Oh.
honest. I'm not a reader, I'm not a writer. So if anyone were to tell me to read a book, I think I'd tell them to go fly a kite because there's no way in
Do
heck
you like
I'm reading.
audiobooks?
Pardon?
Can you do audiobooks?
Audio. See, you know what? I just, maybe it's just because I work so much, but I am just like, if I'm not reading for work purposes, I
Mhm.
almost like, I'm just like, I'm done. I want to go
Yeah,
outside. I want to do something else. I'm not a like
that's
sit on
fair.
the couch, read, have this beautiful nest chair. Don't ever sit in it. Like, just don't. But the 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work, I think it's a book for people who don't like to read because it is so active. Like there
Yeah,
are really nice little activities in it. It's broken down into these like really like short like sections, so it's not
yeah.
hard to read. It's not hard to like put down either. Like if you have a partner who likes to interrupt you or a child or a dog barking or something and you need to like tend to them, it's not hard to remember where you
Mhm.
stopped and like where to pick up again. I really love short chapters for that, and this is definitely that. And it's right up there with like the practical approach with the Gottman method. Lots of takeaways. I mean, I'd say it's all takeaways. And I think that's why people seek the Gottman approach out. I think that's why they seek me out.
Yeah.
And so this book is a great way of complementing what we're doing in session. It can be done before, it can be done after, in tandem.
Yeah.
I just think it's another way of just kind of like absorbing information too. In session, we're talking a lot,
Yeah.
but this is just another way to like soak in the material.
Yeah. No, I think you're right about that one being very digestible for people. And
Totally.
I think that, especially when you're dealing with something like couples therapy or just, reworking your marriage or relationship, you
Hmm.
need it to be pretty straightforward because there are so many emotions that are either backed up or um really raw. And so to have something that's very to the point is helpful.
I think so too. I think a lot of people, well, this is again from the Gottmans, like people don't seek out help for so long.
Mhm.
I won't throw out the stat because I totally will get it wrong. I'm sure it's in the book. But just like couples don't seek out help.
Yeah.
Like I think it's something like 5 years too late or something.
Yeah.
Something ridiculous
No, it
like
sounds
that.
right.
Right. So anywho, I think it's great. I think it's great for people in all stages of relationship too. So like premarital couples, your people have been married for a few years, people have been married forever. It's a good one. So
Yeah.
I'm preaching to the choir on that
Well,
for
yeah,
sure.
that's okay. That's a good one though. It's
Yeah.
foundational.
So it's by John Gottman and Nan Silver. But anywho, yeah, very popular. And
Okay.
I only brought two. So this is another Gottman one, both by John and Julie Gottman. It's called The Eight Dates. I'd say it's one of their less popular books.
Yeah.
How long has it been out for? I feel like it's been out for a while, but it's not super popular. Where would one even find that on a book? How long?
A couple pages in. I'd say
See
like
how
the first or
often I
second.
read? Where would one even see
Well,
this?
it helps to have a husband that's a librarian.
Oh, I forgot about that. That's funny. Don't tell him I said.
It's okay.
Um, okay, it actually doesn't even matter, but now I'm just
No,
intrigued.
it's okay.
Copyright 2018. So not
Okay.
that long ago.
No.
Um, you're gonna see a theme here, why I love this book, and it's why I love the last one too. Um, it's so practical. So it's broken down into 8 dates. So I believe it's 8 chapters long.
Okay.
Maybe an intro chapter and like a kind of concluding chapter here. Yeah. But the idea is just that there are 8 dates and
Yeah.
a couple, usually made up 2 people. Um, each of you can plan 4 dates, and it gives you great examples of
Yeah.
what to plan or things to pick from for each date, and they each date really addresses a different area of the relationship.
Nice.
And a lot of people don't know what to do on dates, or their dates can
Yeah.
feel like the same old thing every time.
Yeah.
Dinner and a movie, or let's just Netflix, or let's order supper, or little things that they do all the time, which are great. But
Yeah.
if you're looking for something a little bit more, like a little more substance,
Yeah.
to really like cultivate that deeper connection, I think this is a lovely place to start. So 8 dates. I'm just gonna read them out because there's only 8.
Yeah. Sure.
So
Go
the
for it.
first one it's called Lean on Me. It's about trust and commitment. The second one is Agree to Disagree. So it's about addressing conflict. And you don't have to do these in any kind of order
Yeah.
either. Like just pick one type thing, or what speaks to you maybe at your time at the time you're doing it. Let's Get It On is number 3. So that's about sex and intimacy. The Cost of Love is number 4, work and money. Number 5 is Room to Grow, which is about family. Play with Me is number 6, so fun and adventure. And date 7 is Something to Believe In, so it's around growth and spirituality. And then date 8 is A Lifetime of Love, about dreams. So
Nice.
if you knew what the 7 principles were, you could totally see how they have fit some, if not most, of the 7 principles into
Yeah.
these dates, right? So the trust and commitment. Those are two different
Yeah.
principles. Conflict, um, dreaming together. These are definitely part of
Yeah.
those principles, right? I, again, have highlighted things in here. I will be candid and tell you that I have read this book, but I have never done any of the dates, which
No?
sounds hypocritical and not good. But I should need to make time for that. So, but I love it. I think it's fantastic. Again, I think people who just want ideas, they want prompts, they want a guide.
Yeah.
Um, this is for them. And it's a book I would totally read, right? I can't recommend something that I wouldn't read myself.
Right.
Um, so that's that, right? But
Yeah.
outside of books, I think it's important just to acknowledge that there's so many other ways of
Yeah.
getting material. Like you were saying, like, do you listen to podcasts or like
Mhm.
audiobooks or things like that? A lot of these books and others are in different
Yes.
formats. What else? You and I send out tons of different
Oh
worksheets
yeah.
or um, like frameworks,
Yeah.
exercises, small little things, right? So I don't want anyone listening to this thinking like, oh, that's all they do is recommend books, because that's the furthest from the truth. Um,
No.
books are really just like there if someone asks,
Yeah.
really. I am often not unpromptedly recommending anything.
Yeah.
Um, that is guided by the client and what the client wants.
I usually like when I'm doing an intake or a consultation, I will ask if that's something
Ooh, I like that.
well, especially when I'm asking like what kind of like what does a good therapy session look like for you?
Great
Um,
question.
yeah, and usually you get a feel of, oh, well, I really like, I like to take something away from the session that I then go and try, and then
Hmm.
you're like, okay, does that mean you like resources like books,
Yes.
worksheets, whatever else? And then usually they're like, yeah, definitely, or no, I'm not a big reader. Um, and sometimes I'll just suggest something like, hey, you know what, this is what we're talking about. If you want a little more information or want it from a different source, just a different perspective on it, here are some books. If not, like I'm not going to be offended if you don't read the book,
Oh,
by
heck
any means.
no. Heck
But
no.
if you're wanting a little something else, that's kind of one way of accessing that.
Yeah, I agree. I just love that we have such a good rapport with our clients where they can ask for things
Yeah, of course.
and that they like trust us to make recommendations. I think that's huge.
Yeah,
So
definitely. Yeah, no, I definitely agree.
good, good, good. So those are the only two I have that I brought with
Those
me
are
today.
good ones,
That doesn't
though.
mean, pardon?
Those are really good ones,
Well,
though.
thank you. Yeah, I think so. Um,
I always
yeah,
forget
I
about
was
the
just,
second one.
pardon?
Oh, I always forget about the second one that you recommend.
The eight dates?
Yeah, I always forget that that's that's an option
That's
to
a
recommend.
book. Yeah. No, I love it. I think it's great. Well, is that where we're calling it today? Is
I think so. Yeah,
there
if
anything else
you
you wanted to say on books?
not necessarily, no. If you're listening to this and want to comment on your favorite therapy books, please do. I'm always looking to add to my to be read book list. So,
Absolutely.
or even just, if you want us to talk a little more in depth about a certain book, we can definitely do that.
Or
Um,
any questions, right? We love questions.
that we do. Okay, well, we will see you guys next time. Thanks for listening.